Good afternoon. I hope things are going well for you on this Wednesday. I'm Julie Broughton. It is now 12:30. This is Take 6. We're so happy you're spending a little bit of time with us today. We'll be checking in with our friend, News 6 meteorologist David Nazario, coming up in just a little bit. You may have seen an article he wrote on clickorlando.com asking, is the grand finale of hurricane season coming up? We'll talk a little bit more about some potential energy that could be headed into the way of the Caribbean as we head through the next couple of weeks. Nothing for us to immediately be concerned about, but we'll talk more about David with that in just a few minutes. And in case you hadn't heard, there's an election coming up in less than 2 weeks away. So Election Day is November 5th. So that, of course, has the focus of so many of us right now. Joining us tonight, investigative reporter Donovan Myrie. And Donovan, you have a really interesting story you have been tasked with today, talking about the Electoral College, and you're coming up with lots of different scenarios to take each candidate to victory and how that could look.
Yes, Julie, I have. As Thomas came over, our producer, and he was talking to me, he's like, "Oh my God, why would you do this to yourself? Why would you go through all these different scenarios?" Basically, what the story about this afternoon is the Electoral College and the biggest race, the presidential race for president, um, Trump versus Harris. And right now, it gets interesting because we've basically turned into kind of the divided states of America. You have your red states and you have your blue states. And it's this idea of red states are going to vote red and blue states are going to go blue. So the question is, who's really deciding the presidency? And pretty much it comes down to 7 states. It comes down to states like Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, these so-called battleground states. Um, what we did is we ran the numbers. We did data, and as some friends of mine say, if there's no data, then it didn't happen. But we looked at the data, and we looked at what the possible outcomes could be. And the interesting thing about it, Julie, do you have any idea how many different possible outcomes there could be in the Electoral College for this presidential race? You want to take a guess?
I mean, I feel like you think, okay, there are only so many roads to 270, right? But then, just the fact that you're working on this, I feel like there just has to be, I'll say 72.
No, 256.
Wow. Were
There are
you surprised
200
by
and
this?
there are 256 possible outcomes to the White House. And basically, what it comes down to is if I've got my numbers correct, and I'm squinting because I'm looking on my phone because I
Hmm.
left all my research over at my desk, I think I have it as 145 different possibilities for Kamala Harris to make it to the White House, 104 possibilities of Donald Trump making it to the White House. And yes, there are 7 scenarios where this could end in a tie.
So I have to ask you, you said earlier, why do I do this to myself? Was this story your idea? Did you pitch this?
I did. I actually pitched this because
Okay.
a few months ago, I was thinking to myself, you know, we've in the past few elections, there's been a lot about data, about how does this play out? How does this play out between these states and these states? And one of the questions I had was, well, if all the red states do vote red, and Florida is a red state, but it doesn't mean if you're a Democrat, don't vote because, as we've seen, every single vote counts. But if all the red states vote red and all the blue states vote blue, and we're back down to the battleground states, what are the different scenarios of, when somebody can actually get enough to get to 270 to make it to the White House? So I started looking at the numbers, and I toiled with this for days, and then finally got like the right combination of how I could do it. And as the saying goes from one of our people up in corporate, up in Detroit, they say, check your math. And so what I did is I actually made an Excel spreadsheet, and the Excel spreadsheet shows all the different combinations. And later on today, we'll have a web story with this. We'll have an infographic with this. And if you really so want to do this to yourself, you can download my Excel spreadsheet and look at it yourself and look at all the different combinations.
Okay, so were you surprised at all the different combinations when you
Yes,
went into this? Okay, did
yeah,
what you find match what you were expecting?
I didn't expect so many. I'm not a mathematician. And I don't know if it's simple math or not. And basically, what you're looking at again is seven battleground states, and there's one congressional district in Nebraska. Nebraska and Maine, they do not have a winner takes all in the Electoral College. You can actually have some votes go to one candidate and some votes go to another candidate. And in fact, in the 2020 election, Biden stole, they say stole, but Biden basically came in and took one vote out of Nebraska's, I think it's their second congressional district, which is in the eastern part of the state. And he basically took that one vote. Now, one vote doesn't sound like a lot in electoral college, but let me tell you, that one vote makes a big, big difference. It's one of the reasons that we end up with different scenarios of ties and things. We have some scenarios that you can see in that spreadsheet where a candidate only wins by two votes. So it can be really, really, really close. So, to go back and answer your original question, yeah, I was really surprised. And I was really surprised as I was working through the numbers at how many different ways all this can work. And it's interesting. And Julie, you don't even want to think about the the possibility of this ending in a tie because America is not going to be ready for this because it's going to end up in the courts.
Mm.
There's all these different things where, according to, I believe it's the 12th Amendment, the House of Representatives picks the president, the Senate picks the vice president. And by the way, it's not the sitting House and the sitting Senate, it's the incoming House and incoming Senate. And strange enough, we were talking about this this morning. I was talking with Christy Zizzo over in the digital team, and we both looked at each other and said, "Wait a second! If we have a 50-50 tie in the Senate, who's the tiebreaker? It's Kamala Harris. It's the vice president." And so basically, the vice president would basically be voting herself into the next vice presidency. So we're not ready for this. It's you can, if you are crossing your fingers for one thing, please cross your fingers that there's not a tie.
And you said there are 7 scenarios that could lead to a tie.
There are seven scenarios that could lead to a tie. Yes, there are. So, percentage wise, literally, Thomas, our producer, had to pull me over from my work and say, like, hey, it's time for take six, because I was literally working on what the percentages is for the 145, 104, and 1. And I really believe I got it right for 145. It's either 145 or 149 for Harris. My phone is so small I can't read it without my glasses.
That's okay. And you'll have all of this for us later today on News 6. And you said you're breaking it all down into a web story as well. What time will we see you on air today?
I am at 5:30 in producer Tom's 5:30 show. I will
Okay.
be making my investigative reporter debut at one of the big walls. I have a clicker around here somewhere. We said, "Hey, are you going to wear a suit?" I'm like, "I don't think I can do this in a suit." So you actually may see me like Steve Kornacki style with my sleeves rolled up, just in a shirt, basically pointing and touching walls and things like that. It Tune in because this is going to be interesting because it's my first time doing it in a long time.
Okay, that sounds very athletic if you think you can't do it in a suit. So I'm very curious now. I was curious about the information. Now I'm curious about the presentation as well.
Well, thank you, Julie. Wish me luck.
I'll be there in the studio cheering you on. I'll be doing weather at 5:30. So and I have my own clicker, so I feel it for you. All right, Donovan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie.
All right, so that will be coming up with Donovan Myrie at 5:30. Now, coming up in just a few minutes, we are going to take a short break, but when we get back, we're going to check in with News 6 digital meteorologist David Nazario, talking about an article you may have seen that he wrote on clickorlando.com about wrapping up hurricane season and what we are expecting for the rest of hurricane season. Stay with us. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. Time now is 12:41. Welcome back to Take Six. I'm Julie Broughton. We're so happy you're spending a little bit of time with us this afternoon. Now, as you know, it is still hurricane season. Hurricane season doesn't officially wrap up for us until the end of November. November 30th is the last day. And so that means that we still, although we're quiet right now, need to keep watching things very closely. And News 6 digital meteorologist David Nazario joins us now. And David, you wrote an article that is doing really well on clickorlando.com. A lot of people super interested in this, talking about what could potentially be the finale of hurricane season. That article I was just reading out there a few minutes ago, talking about some of the different things that we look for as we are continuing to forecast as we head toward the end of hurricane season. I know Thomas is running over right now to check in with David and make sure that he is all set, but we are looking at some of the graphics that he put together for this. Now, again, right now, the tropics looking nice and quiet for us, so no major concerns, but we do look at some tools. There's David, and there's Thomas live in the background of David's shot for us as he's waving. Hi, David. Can you hear me? I think he is still getting set up over there. He is just across the
No,
hall.
we are all good.
Oh, there you are in your beautiful new streaming studio. This has been Jonathan's baby, so it's always so nice to see the beautiful streaming studio that you guys have. So I was just talking about your article that you wrote that a lot of people are really liking on clickorlando.com about some of the different things we watch as we're looking out long range when it comes to the tropics. And I know you put together some stuff to talk about that for us.
I did, absolutely. And I want to go ahead and as we segue on over to the first graphic, just want to let everybody know out there who's tuning in. When I use the terminology grand finale, I want to emphasize that this is in terms of just the large scale environment. And what I mean by that is from the top to the bottom of where weather is observed in our atmosphere, that is typically when we want to find all the ingredients for favorable tropical style conditions. So as you can see here, courtesy of Climate Prediction Center, they have actually elevated the West Caribbean to a above 40% chance for tropical cyclone formation as we go through the dates of October 30th through November 5th. And essentially what this means is it's just going to be one of those sources or one of those source regions to which all the ingredients that we would typically need to produce a tropical storm or let alone a hurricane are more than likely going to come together. So that's kind of what the article is talking about. I saw some comments on social media mentioning, we're going to have explosive development or there's more storms, more Florida storms. That's not what we're emphasizing at all, folks who are tuning in right now. Is it just looks like in terms of the rest of the hurricane season, as we get to the final 30-ish some odd days with the approach of November, that is going to be the spot to where if we're going to see any more named storms, it'll likely be down in that area. So we'll go ahead and move right along. I'll show you what I have built in up next. You can see here we have favorable conditions for tropical activity, and what this means on the right-hand side, we have a large-scale rising. We have moist air that's going to be moving in, which tropical cyclones tend to thrive off of. The wind shear will be relaxing. We had a lot of wind shear, which is just stronger winds in the overall environment that'll typically shred or destroy tropical thunderstorms that will try to organize and become something more than just showers and rainfall down there. And as we all know, plenty of warm water. The Gulf of Mexico is just about tapped. The greater Atlantic basin has seen a reduction in overall sea surface temperatures, but the Caribbean, since Beryl back in June, July, has really not seen too much activity to wane down those hot water temps both at the surface of the ocean and below the surface, because what happens below the surface is just as integral. Now, moving on to my next graphic, which I'm particularly proud of, this is where we're going to look at a bit of that large-scale forcing that's going to help to produce the ingredients that we mentioned on the panel prior to. It's called the Madden-Julian Oscillation. And essentially, for all of you watching, what this means is just a huge area. And when I say huge, we're talking the size of Central America, the size of the northern half of South America, or the United States. It's a big region of just very disturbed weather and rising motions. And as it moves west to east, particularly near the equator, where the tropics are, and we have our tropical cyclones, what it does is it kind of acts like a shovel. Anything that's out in front of it or right underneath where it's currently positioned is just going to come up. It's going to rise. It forces instability. It kind of helps to supplement what kind of moisture and showers and storms may already be occurring in that general area. It gives it a little nudge in the positive direction to produce a bit more of that tropical storm activity. And the reason I want to bring this up is, especially most recently, all of us Floridians, we dealt with Major Hurricane Milton. We had Major Hurricane Helene at the very tail end of September into early October. It was during another push of our MJO coming across its favorable phases, which are 2 through 5. We'll leave that for another discussion, or catch us over on the Just Weather page over on YouTube. We can break that down a little bit more. But essentially, we had it in its most optimal phasing to help give an extra nudge to the tropical Atlantic basin to create those favorable ingredients to produce the tropical cyclones. And that's what we're looking at in terms of October 30th through about November 10th timeframe, which is why, as the article stipulates, that could be the final hoorah of when we could see most of our tropical cyclone activity. And then finally, moving forward to one last graphic that I have for you. This is one of my favorites, especially since it gives us a colorful palette to look at. These are our tropical probabilities, courtesy of the European model. And I'll openly admit, over the last couple of days, there's been some windshield wiping. I'm sure for those of you tuning in right now, you've heard that terminology from your favorite weather source, going back and forth in terms of it's going to happen, it might not happen, looking a little more confident today, maybe not so much. And you can see here I have one of the analysis points, one of the query tools pulled up right down there in the Southern Caribbean, and not looking too hot. We're only about a 35% chance that there could be some kind of a tropical depression or even just a tropical disturbance down there. However, I will caveat that by saying the Euro has been a little lackadaisical. It's been a little relaxed in terms of highlighting areas that could develop an organized tropical system. So we're going to keep watching all of our model data, but for all intents and purposes, this is likely to be, if we're going to see anything else in the 2024 hurricane season, it'll likely be down in the Caribbean. Julie?
And David, you mentioned if people wanted to break things down further, that you and Jonathan are always on our weather, all of our weather pages. So again, tell people where they can find you, because I know you guys really go in depth with a lot of this stuff.
We do, yes. So Jonathan Kagas and myself both have individual social medias. You can just look us up by our name. We're happy to assist with any comments or questions that you may have. We also host both on the News 6 WKMG YouTube channel and the app, and the Just Weather YouTube channel, which we can probably link at some point in time in either a future article or here in a social media post for you to find us in our more long-winded live streams, to where we can break down everything we more or less encapsulated in about 2 to 3 minutes, because there's a lot of wonderful science that goes into this. And I honestly, Jonathan and I both, Julie can testify to this, we really enjoy getting into the nitty gritty and trying to explain it and break it down, so you guys are picking up what we're putting down whenever it comes to giving you the forecast.
And not only do you love it, but you're so good at it, and you make it so easy to understand. And I think you make people really enjoy learning about weather, which is great, because we know there are so many sources out there that maybe aren't always so great.
Yes.
So I love that you take the time to answer questions and really help people understand, so that they know what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. I would say, honestly, alongside just furthering my education in meteorology, it's just as fun and exciting to interact with everybody in the community and help just kind of get them the best educated answer that they need in terms of especially dealing with tropical activity, because we know we've had a rough hurricane season. Trust us, so, you know, Julie and I, all of us at the Pinpoint Weather team, we are done. We're ready to say goodbye to the hurricane season.
Right. We just want to take a nice nap and enjoy the dry season, you know, the beautiful weather that we all live in Florida for as we move through the winter. So we're ready, but
yes.
we are watching it, and we're on it in case we don't get that. So David, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right, let's get a quick check of your forecast for today. Seeing a pretty nice quiet day out there. Still temperatures a little bit warmer than normal, sitting right now at 82 in Orlando, 82 in Kissimmee. If you're in Ocala, you're at 78, and it is 79 right now for those of you in Palm Coast. Here's a look at the radar. We've seen some of those isolated showers moving from northeast to southwest throughout the last couple of days, really, and you'll notice some showers out over the Atlantic. So because of those winds with that onshore component, that will again be a possibility for us as we head through the day today. Here's how that looks on the clouds and rain forecast for you on the model data. Again, not a lot of rain, but don't be surprised if you see just a few quick passing showers. Overall, our chance of rain today stays right around 20%. Next 7 days looking pretty nice for us. 85 for our high today. We go to 84 on Thursday. Now Thursday into Friday, we're watching another cold front that will come through. This will pass through dry and really just kind of bring a reinforcing blast of drier air into the picture for the weekend. So 84 on Saturday, and 83 on Sunday. We will, of course, talk much more about your forecast for you coming up on News 6 starting at 4. If you have any questions or comments for us here at Take 6, head to clickorlando.com/take6. Let us know what's on your mind. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll see you at 4.